We're now moving to a rather smaller project with a much smaller budget as well. So the Our Day Out project I'm going to talk to you about, and it's using one of our archive collections in a different context to anything we've ever done before, really. So just to give you a bit of background, first of all, to LJMU and our special collections and archives. We're a relatively new service, certainly compared to Durham, and our collections generally focus on things like popular culture, music, theatre, fashion, and counterculture as well. So the archive I'm going to talk to you about doesn't quite fit into those categories, but there is a lot of crossover. Our main focuses are really on supporting research and training and teaching within the university, and also civic engagement and cultural partnerships. So those are two key areas that are in the LJMU strategic plan, and so we're very aware of making sure that we address those and work to put towards supporting those in all of our work. So in terms of civic engagement, we do already do things like Heritage Open Days and Explore Your Archive as well, and other events that encourage the public in, but we are looking to build on that, and this project has been a bit of a starting point for us in that. So, the Keith Medley Photographic Archive. So Keith Medley was a commercial and press photographer, and during World War II he worked for the RAF in the Marine Aircraft Experimental Establishment, which I can never remember, but he filmed the first bouncing bomb experiments. After the war he came back to Wallasey with his RAF colleague Bob Bird, and they set up a photographic business in Wallasey, which, for those of you that don't know, Merseyside is on the Wirral. And in 1964, he became sole owner of the photographic business. So the collection came to us in 2009, and it was suggested to us by one of our academics in the screen school. She already had a contact so it kind of linked to this collection, and it was donated to us by Keith Medley's son, John, and he's still quite involved with anything we do with the archive. He's very keen to be involved. He turns up to any exhibitions that we do. And before it came to us, it had been held by someone who used to run the local history society, I think, and it was basically stored in a kind of outbuilding and a cellar, and it's a whole series of glass plate negatives, which meant that the ones that were in the cellar in particular, because it was near the seaside, had a light coating of sand on top of all the boxes. So it wasn't ideal conditions, but we took the collection in, and it is safe and secure, at least now. We've not been able to do a huge amount of work on it because it does require quite a bit of funding. The collection itself consists of around 30,000, mainly glass plate negatives. There are very few prints in the collection, so it's really not easy to access for anyone, really. We have registers, which correspond to negative numbers for each negative. So they tell you when it was taken and where it was taken, what the subject is. But apart from that, there's not a great deal that you can do to make it accessible. So this project was really a way forward for that, making people more aware of the collection and making it more accessible. So it needs a lot of work, but this project was something small scale that we could do with the collection. So you can see Keith Medley on the left-hand side there. He's actually there. He has a Movietone camera. He was also the Northern representative for Movietone, so he did a lot of the cinema films about the Northwest. So anything that features like the Beatles or anything like that, it was usually him that filmed those. Then one of the holiday photographs taken in New Brighton, which is a seaside resort on the Wirral, and some beach photographs and a photograph of the pier at the bottom there. So that's the starting point, really, the collection. So the project Our Day Out was led by Ian Bradley, one of the academics in the screen school, and he came up with this idea, really, and approached the Heritage Lottery Fund, applied for funding. So one of their small bids, I think it was about £8,500 he applied for, and his idea was to work with the community to capture memories of family days out using archival photographs to stimulate memory. So the first step was really to get some people together to work on the project. So he led the project, but he got together a small group of students who he thought would be keen to work on it. So they're media production students. So they've already done interviews with people in the past, but they tended to be things that kind of vox pop interviews on the street, just, you know, key phrases, things like that. They'd never really done these kind of in-depth interviews before. So he could see that it would be really valuable for them as well. So he got this small group of students together, arranged to be able to pay them through Workbank because it was extracurricular, wasn't part of their course, which meant that we had quite good hopes of retaining those students throughout the project. And then Ian approached a number of different institutions to see if he could work with them. So the two institutions he ended up working with were the Poppy Centre, run by Age Concern, and Kensington Fields Community Association. So they're both day centres for elderly people, so they're not homes, but they're places where people go for bingo and for social events, and so it was a good place to bring people together and start working on this project. So these students were second year students, and the first stage of the project really was some training on oral history interviews. And Ian brought in Stephen Kelly from the Oral History Society and did 3 sessions of training, which I went along to as well, which was very useful for us in terms of techniques to interview people, and particularly people who might not be that keen to talk to start with, just kind of getting them to open up. And again, prompts as well to get people's memory. So these photographs were taken at the Poppy Centre, and you can see our one keen student who was okay to be photographed, the rest of them chickened out. So the project was filmed. There will be a video at some point. It's still in production at the moment, but hopefully it should be ready soon. And so for the first part of the interviews with people, once we'd got some centres that were interested, we started off with group interviews with, say, 6 to 10 people in each group. And we put together memory packs, so packs of photographs from the archive collection that would stimulate people's memories, get them talking. So these pictures, on the left-hand side here, we've got New Brighton baths. So people from the area will remember those swimming baths. And you can see they're pretty huge and extremely crowded on that day, with the very scary-looking slide that I'm sure wouldn't pass modern health and safety standards. And then we have the pier here with the fairground. This is, again, from the fairground. It's selling running the hoopla stall. But this is the cable car, which ran from the seaside up to New Brighton Tower, which appears to be basically a bucket on a wire. The people in it seem to be quite happy. There's quite a lot of pictures of children and people of all ages in it, and they all seem quite happy, but I don't think you'd be allowed to run that now. And then we have Miss New Brighton, the annual competition on the top right there. Keith Medley was basically the official photography for Miss New Brighton every year. So we've got quite a lot of photographs of that. So in these workshops, the students encouraged people to talk about their memories, and there was quite a lot of debate about things, you know, when the fairground stopped running, when the baths were closed, all of those kind of things, because most of this doesn't really exist anymore. And those interviews were recorded to then inform further interview topics. And they asked for volunteers for one-to-one interviews. And so once we had those, we had interviews with one-to-one interviews with individuals, which were filmed to camera. And those I'll show you a snippet of in a moment. But for these individuals that volunteered, they also got these postcards, which is what I've got out on display on the table if any of you want to have a look at afterwards. So personalised photographs, personalised postcards with photographs from the collection and then an extract of the interview on the back of the postcard. They are postable postcards because they really wanted to make sure that people could actually put them in the post to friends and relatives. So each participant got a selection of those postcards that they can then share with their family and friends. So it means that they've really got something tangible to take away with them from this project. They all seem to really enjoy being part of it, but it's nice to make sure that they've got something to show that they've been part of a project. And on the back, there's also, it's actually cut it off on the projection, there is a QR code on the bottom right-hand corner of the postcards, and that takes you directly to the video on the website. So you can't quite see it on that projection, unfortunately, but you can see it on the postcards that are on display there. So it has a slightly cut off the top of the projection, but this is the website, the RDA website. So Ian created this as part of the project. So there's a number of photographs from the collection available via Flickr on the website. And the video that they're producing will be on there in due course when it's finally finished. There's also opportunities to add your own memories online as well. So you can just go onto the website and submit your own memories if you want to. So we've got an example here of Claire, who was born a bit later and just remembers bits and pieces about the area. So it doesn't matter, you know, what age you are or what you remember about things, but it's just a way to expand the project into wider parts of the community. So on the website as well, you can get to the initial workshop recordings, which are right at the top here. So some of those are quite long. I think that one's like 13 minutes, but that's the initial discussions. So people looking at the photographs and going, oh yeah, I remember that, and then having a bit of an argument about exactly when things happened or how things ran at the time. These are all of our lovely participants. So each of those have got a video, and hopefully I will be able to play this now. Oops.
Well, when I was a young teenager, I'd go with friends, and we always went to New Brighton as a special treat. If you had extra money, and I used to get it when my granddad, he was a seafarer, and he'd come home from sea and he'd always treat you and give you, say, 10 bob, which would be 50p, and that would take you to New Brighton on the ferry, and it'd take you on the fair for rides. It was always very exciting to go because it was something different, you know, from just going to the park or playing out with your friends. I love going on the helter-skelter because you'd climb up the stairs and you're always rickety and get in like a sack and slide down and then jump off and go back and have another go. Yeah, and then we always liked going to New Brighton baths. If you didn't have any money to spend on the fair, you'd go in the baths and spend all day there. You know, and they used to have beauty competitions on, you know, Miss New Brighton. And there used to be a programme on the television on a Saturday night. I can't remember the name of it. And they used to have different seaside resorts with the beauty contests, and we were always really excited if it was New Brighton, in case you saw anyone you knew, and you never did. We always went to places with the family. We always went out, but we went where you didn't spend very much money. So if we went to New Brighton, it would just be over on the ferry and on the sand, just digging on the sand and paddling. When I went with friends, we'd walk along the prom, because that way, you know, it took you an hour or so, because you'd walk along and there was a little shop between Seacombe and New Brighton. I can't remember where it was, and they sold things like ginger beer and lemonade, and you'd go in and buy that. And they had one of those little pinball machines that you'd put a penny in and flick the thing. So, you know, that was another thing we all liked doing on the way to New Brighton. The main places we'd go to is New Brighton, West Kirby, Morton perhaps. And then later on, we'd go in a caravan to Wales. But that was as far as it went. Thought we were going to Florida when we went to Wales. And we go on the bus, you know, from Man Island to the pierhead. I remember the ferries, but not empty. The ferry boats, you'd go and queue up, and there'd always be loads and loads of people all going on and coming off, and you'd try and go upstairs to get off on the, you know, when they lower the gangplank from the upstairs.
I'll leave it there anyway. That was Eileen, and so that's just to give you an idea of the kind of things that people were talking about. There's always a bit of debate. The other one that I had, the other video I've got on there is Brian, who tells about how he used to get free rides on the fun fair because his mum worked there. So it's really nice to hear people's memories and to have the photographs spark particular memories, things that people had completely forgotten about. So all of those are available online, and you can go on and see them at any time, and there's a whole selection of them. So the next stage of the project, which hasn't quite started yet, is an exhibition at the Museum of Liverpool. For those of you that don't know it, this is the museum here, and it's right on the waterfront, so it gets a very heavy footfall. It's a very popular tourist attraction. So the exhibition will be held there. It starts on November the 12th, and it's going to run until September 2015. So we've got a really nice long run there for lots of people to go in and see the exhibition. And it's going to be a display of the some of the prints from the collection. So we selected a number of prints from the collection. I think it's about 17, 18 prints in the end, which we've printed up on photographic paper and framed them. So they're the sort of traditional style prints. They'll be displayed with a quote from an interview next to them rather than a traditional caption. So very much involving the participants in the exhibition. We'll also display some of the postcards that were produced as part of the exhibition, and the video will be there sometimes. I think it can't be there all the time just because of the exhibition space, but certainly for the launch we'll have it there and for certain other days. So it's really giving people a chance to see the project work that we've done, but also giving participants a chance to see the prints on display and to be involved in something as well. So all the participants have been invited to the launch event, so there'll be tea and cake, and Ian's put on a special minibus for both centres to bring them over, so they don't have to go to any extra trouble and they can just come along and see how things go. I think his most enthusiastic participant is 90 odd. And he said, oh, I'll rustle up a few extra people, don't worry, I'll get some people to come along. So he's sprightly enough. So it's really going to be a lasting testament to the project, really. So the next steps really after this project and after this exhibition is finished, we would like to make a larger bid to the Heritage Lottery Fund, probably, to actually do more work on the collection. So we've done this project and we've done a previous exhibition last year, which was some of the portrait photography. But they're really just tasters of the potential of the archive. So we know that there's huge potential there and that people really love the photographs and they love seeing them and they want to engage with them. But obviously to be able to do that, we need to get the images out there, which means that we need to do conservation work, cataloguing work and digitisation. So we're hoping to apply for further funding to build on that. We'd also like to build on the community work as well. So it's something that, as an archive service, we've not really done before, only in terms of tours of the archives, that kind of thing. But it's something we'd really like to build on. We don't have much in the way of staffing at the moment, but we can plan for the future. And Ian is actually hoping to take this project into schools as well and do a kind of project where he maybe shows them some of the interviews and some of the postcards that the previous participants have produced, and then talk to them about what their day out is like now. And one of the things he's thinking about doing is maybe getting them to tweet. So just use the 140 characters to describe their day out as it is today, and just then compare and contrast and see what they think about how days out used to be and what kind of things they like to do now. And again, that's something that as a university we've not done very much so far. So it does actually say benefits on top of this slide. So the benefits of the exhibition, of the project. For the participants, obviously sharing your memories is a very positive experience. It's psychologically beneficial and enjoyable. Participants all had a really positive feeling going away from it. The exhibition and the postcards mean they really feel part of something and they have something tangible to take away with them as well. So we really wanted to make sure that they felt that they were involved with the project. The students have had additional training on interview techniques, specifically relating to an audience they might not necessarily come into contact with that much. And looking at different techniques of speaking to people, of making the recorder, whatever type of device you're using, a bit less intrusive, and talking to people and getting their memories from them. So that's very good experience for their future careers. They're media production students, so it's something that they are likely to come across in the future. For the university, it obviously spreads the word about the collection, and it is all good work to build on if we apply for further funding to work on the archive. It gets the images out there. I mean, that's the big thing with this collection, because it's all negatives. It's just not very accessible, but there's fantastic images in there that we really want people to see. And we really just want to get the images out there and get people to be able to see them. We've now, because we've printed up a number of the negatives for this exhibition, we've got more prints that we can show people so we can put on other exhibitions in the future. And we've also, within our team, built up some expertise in terms of digitisation techniques and printing techniques for this type of material, so we can then build on that and do further exhibitions in the future. For the wider public, obviously, we want to be able to make people aware of this collection and of LJMU archives generally. As a university and as one of the newer universities, people either don't necessarily know that we have archives, or even if they do, they don't really know that they can come in and use our archives. So we're always trying to spread the word. It'll also hopefully open people's minds to the possibilities of archives, different ways that they can engage with them, and the different ways that they can show collections. So on to challenges, which is what it says at the top. In terms of participation, Ian did approach quite a lot of different places in order to get some willing participants, and then obviously had to get some individuals to volunteer for the one-to-one interviews being filmed. Some of them were very keen, jumped at it straight away and were quite keen to be on TV, but others not quite so keen. There were some political issues as well linked to this collection. So Keith Medley's former business partner, his son, there's some issues there which meant that certain organisations wouldn't work with us. Won't go into that too much at the moment, but yeah, so there were some issues to overcome there. Training, so Ian paid out of the Heritage Lottery Fund money for external training for the oral history training, but also he paid the students through Workbank for the extra hours that they worked as well. It did mean that they stayed on the project and they felt like they were getting something from it as well, not just the training, but also getting a little bit of extra money in their pockets. Finding images was a big challenge. The collection is not organised in any kind of way. The negatives are numbered, and they have been sorted over the years into kind of chunks of organised sections, but people have kind of pulled images out that go to particular, sort of fit in with particular themes, and so they're all over the place. And being glass negatives, you can't easily just kind of flick through them and try and find them, particularly when you've got 30,000 of them. So although we could find things on the registers, and we're in the process of putting those into a spreadsheet so they're much more searchable, as it is, it's just a chronological register, so you have to just flick through and try and spot something. So although we could find the number, we couldn't always necessarily find the image that went with that number. So we had a bit of a challenge, and we spent quite a lot of time just trawling through, desperately trying to find something. But we did come up with some wonderful images. This one is actually New Brighton Baths that you can see here in the background, but it's empty. So they would empty it for special occasions, for Miss New Brighton and for this marching band. And I just quite like this one with a little boy watching, looks as if he's directing the band. So we did come across some really lovely images in the collection, and I know that there are many, many more. It just really requires someone to be able to work on them. So there were many challenges along the way, but it's been a wonderful project to be involved with, and it's really a first step in getting the collection out there a little bit further. So that's my details, and this is just outside New Brighton Tower, people waiting. That did say questions at the top, but I think we're waiting till the end for questions, so I'll just leave my details up there for a couple of seconds while we do a changeover.